Well, thank you for the invitation to speak at your conference, and I'm sorry I can't be there in person. But in talking about Balochistan, I think it's fair to say that for the European Union, Parliament itself, the frame of discussion is more general in terms of Pakistan rather than specific areas. Although there are recent discussions about the role of China and its relationships with Pakistan may shift the focus of our attention. We know that it's been difficult for NGOs and others to operate within Balochistan. And historically, our main concern there in the previous programming period for Pakistan was in terms of issues around water supply, water quality, and that's linked to livelihoods and employment in the area. We currently, under the new programming period, have an education support programme in primary education worth something about 20 million euros. And we're really hoping that that will make a big difference, but not least for the education of girls. So that programme is within the support sort of priorities that we have for Pakistan: rural development, education, and good governance, including human rights and the rule of law. Our current discussions about Pakistan in the European Parliament have sort of a couple of different sort of focuses, one of which is about GSP+, the trading scheme that we now have linked to Pakistan. And this involves their signing up, ratification and implementation of some 27 international conventions, covering issues such as the environment, labour rights, and indeed civil, political and human rights. And we're currently going through the first evaluation since that scheme came into being, getting on for 2 years ago. And we'll be looking at how is Pakistan programming the implementation of those conventions in all parts of Pakistan and for the benefit of all peoples. But we also have concerns, not least, for example, in relation to the National Action Plan against terrorism, where the European Parliament has particularly picked up the issue about the use of more military courts, meeting of course in private. We've pushed for those to be public, the use of military courts and indeed the resumption of the death penalty, and the way in which that has now been being used well beyond what we were originally told it would be brought in for in terms of the worst cases of terrorism. And the rate now of executions in Pakistan is of real concern to us within the Parliament, not least when you look at the quality or lack of quality of a number of those court cases which have led to people being on death row in the first place. So our recent resolutions have called for a strengthening of the Human Rights Commission in Pakistan, its independence according to the Paris Principles, an improvement in the quality of law. We have concern about the partisan nature of a number of those engaged in the legal system within Pakistan, rather than being impartial in terms of somebody's ethnicity, religious belief or none, and in terms of the treatment of minorities across Pakistan, not least, for example, the Hazara and others of minority religious sects. And the rule of law itself, in terms of tackling enforced disappearances, the impunity, it would appear, of the forces of law and order at the moment, the lack of trust there is within those systems, of course, is of real concern. Because if people are going to get away literally with murder, then you can't be surprised if that becomes a means of practice of dealing with those that stand up against the state, or indeed those who are inconvenient to political movements within the country. And we're also concerned that the army becomes an arm of the state rather than we've maybe seen in the past, the state becoming an arm of the army. I mentioned earlier the interest that we now have within the European Union about the role of China in Pakistan. And of course the question about the development of the port in Gwadar, all of the infrastructure that goes with that, means I think that there will be much more emphasis on what is happening in Balochistan, both in terms of how will the people of the area have their voices heard within development in the area, how will people benefit from development there, or is that money going to disappear off either to the national level or disappear into pockets along the route? And how is security actually going to be operating within the area? Is this going to mean greater repression of those that have a different view from that of the government? Is this going to mean that people working on some of those schemes are not safe? What will security mean in the area? How will people be heard? So I think this will be a growing interest, a growing concern to us. And I would urge you to use that growing concern to actually raise the voices of the people of Balochistan in terms of their own self-determination with what is happening with those current developments. Because it's certainly going to be very much about the future of people of the area and the stable, hopefully, and peaceful political future of Pakistan itself. So once again, thank you for your invitation, and I hope that you have a very successful and productive conference. Thank you.